think we will probably see a merger of biological intelligence and digital intelligence. Musk told an audience of the World Government Summit in Dubai, where he also launched Tesla in the United Arab Emirates. It's mostly about the bandwidth, the speed of the connection between your brain and the digital version of yourself, particularly output. Musk explained what he meant by saying the computers can communicate at 1 trillion bits per second, while humans' main communication method is typing with their fingers via a mobile device, can do about 10 bits per second. In an age when AI threatens to become widespread, humans would be useless, so there's a need to merge with machines, according to Musk. Some high bandwidth interface to the brain will be something that helps achieve a symbiosis between human and machine intelligence, and maybe solves the control problem and the uselessness problem, Musk explained. The technologist's proposal said he sees a new layer of a brain able to access information quickly and tap into artificial intelligence. It's not the first time that Musk has spoken about the need for humans to evolve, but it is a constant theme of his talks on how society can deal with the disruptive threat of AI. Very quick disruption. During his talk, Musk touched upon his fear of deep AI, which goes beyond the driverless cars to what he calls artificial general intelligence. This he described as AI smarter than the smartest human on Earth, and called it a dangerous situation. While this might be some way off, the Tesla boss said the more immediate threat is how AI, particularly autonomous cars, which his own firm is developing, will displace jobs. He said the disruption to people whose jobs it is to drive will take place over the next 20 years, after which 12 to 15% of the global workforce will be unemployed. The most near-term impact from a technology standpoint is autonomous cars. That is going to happen much faster than people realize, and it's going to be a great convenience, Musk said. But there are many people whose jobs are to drive. In fact, I think it might be the single largest employer of people, driving in various forms. So we need to figure out new roles for what to do with those, for what do those people do. But it will be very disruptive and very quick. Watch Elon Musk says robots will take jobs and governments will pay your wages.
I think that there's a pretty good chance we end up with a universal basic income or something like that due to automation. I'm not sure what else one would do this, but that's kind of, I think, what would happen. And, people have time to do other things and more complex things, more interesting things, so they're more leisure time. And then we've got to figure out how we integrate with a world in the future with advanced AI. I think that's going to be one of the toughest. Maybe
so it's like the technology revolution that's taking place today is sort of like the Industrial Revolution that took place 200 years ago, and that's when the Luddites were smashing the sewing factories in London, and the same thing happens now. But what Tesla does, what Elon does, is he tells people, hey, listen, you show me how we can do your job better, I'll get a different job for you. I'll get a better job for you. I'll get a more interesting job for you. So people at Tesla are really delighted working at Tesla. People work in other places, as soon as they can eliminate them, they eliminate them.
All right. I'll give you one last word on that, Elon, if you have a thought, and then we'll wrap it up.
Well, I do have a thought, but it would take too long to convey in this interview. But ultimately, I think there would need to be some kind of improved symbiosis with digital superintelligence. But that's a pretty involved discussion. So
that's hard to do on daytime business news.
So here I am on February 13th, Monday, 2017, and listening to Elon Musk talk about the way that robots will take our jobs and government will pay our wages. And he says that what's needed is a new interface that will connect digital intelligence with human intelligence. Well, that's what I'm working on. I'm working on an interface between humanity and technology. And it's based on the idea that we can now reverse engineer the computer processor, the operating system, the application software, which were initially based on the whole brain, mind, and body. And now we can use that reverse engineering to see what the essence of humanity is in the reflection glass of technology. So it turns out that the structure that I have found for the human mind, which is always the first step in science, it was the first step for to go beyond Ptolemy for Copernicus, to go beyond a flat world to a round world, in fact, a global world, a spherical world. And figuring out what the architecture was helped put the periodic table in periods of rows and groups. And even Watson and Crick, the architecture of the double helix provided the conceptual framework. For 50 years later, we were able to sequence the whole human genome. Well, I have determined that the mind framework is like a cube. Can be seen as like the streets of Manhattan or with elevators. And in fact, that's been confirmed by Dr. Van J. Wadeen at Mass General Hospital and Harvard, that in a paper they wrote in April or March of 2012, with a way of seeing the architecture of the mind and relating that to the organizing principle of the whole brain, the processor, I've been able to define 3 dimensions of the different axes. The x-axis, like the main street, that's the processing, the creative process as it respects humanity, and the cross streets, the y-axis, of a way of grouping the divisions of humanity, like the periodic table, and the up and down z-axis from the limbic system up to the cerebral cortex, like the layers of knowledge and technology. So, beginning with the cube, I have constructed a mock-up of a 3-dimensional whole brain artificial mind that can be the interface between the digital world of artificial intelligence and the mental world of human intelligence. And this user interface doesn't require wires, but provides a visual structure to see uh, this three-dimensional with 1,000 rooms, and it lets you see the steps in the functions of the process, and over time, before, during, and after, past, present, and future. And it allows you to map the network of the mind, and then take the various points of view, from many different points of view, to look at the whole mind based on the whole brain. This mock-up now, I'm working to get the funding for the Whole Brain Foundation, not much, but just a little, to convert my mock-up into a prototype that will make it much easier to see what I'm talking about. Elon Musk couldn't describe his ideas for what that interface would be on CNBC this morning. And I know that I could have a very interesting conversation with him. And I plan to. I plan to get Elon Musk behind this project to lead to the kind of symbiosis. And I believe it won't be just a cyborg where you're completely wired up, but it will be an intermediate station that technology will have a window into humanity beyond the alphanumeric look that technology is now based upon, and the typing that Elon Musk talked about of typing in 10 letters or words a second, and to use pattern recognition that Raymond Kurzweil is very wisely and effectively promoting, to do a combination of pattern recognition and alphanumeric and symbols, so that there is a true collaborative user interface that's the next step along this marvelous scientific journey. So I've figured out how to treat the framework of the mind like the internet of the computers and the websites, and code it like the World Wide Web of Tim Berners-Lee, so that we can code it with what I call Charlie's conceptual cube, that will give the alphanumerics to number the locations in the mind, not just for the locations of ideas, but also going into the applications software version, or the behavior of the body, the apps that you find on, so that there'll be a way of defining, describing, naming the structure, the function, the networks, the interconnections of both the brain and the mind, on top of the brain, the mind on top of the brain, and the operating system on top of the computer processor, all geared to both application software and the behavior of the body. So I'm going to focus now on this research task of the Whole Brain Foundation, and get my buddies who are meeting with me this week and last week, and Guillermo Gobo over the weekend, and Jack Donahue tomorrow night, and Matthew Stockton, and many, many others, to get the minuscule amount of funding that's needed to make the next step from a mock-up to a prototype. And I want everyone to know that we're here on a true snowy day, and it's I've got my Mac over there, and I've got my capture pad, and I've got my iPhone, and that's the story.